No, thank you very much, Marco, actually also for giving us the longest panel slot at this NOAH, so we really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So because you love data, I just looked at our portfolio we are running with Urania Ventures, and we are focusing on pure deep tech investments, which means 50% of our direct investments are space tech investments, and then sustainable aero and robotics. And out of the 15 portfolio companies where we invest direct, 13 companies are led, founded by women. And of our fund investments, we invested in 7 venture capital funds so far. 6 out of them are founded by female general partners. So I was very proud when I looked at this at the portfolio, and just that we can through that also finance and bring more leaders in STEM on stages in future. So Annabella and Carolina, so you both are initiators and backers of the Equal Voice initiative. And Carolina, maybe we start with your foundation and your activities there. What is, where are you engaging when it comes to equality with the Müller-Möhl Foundation?
So let me just start somewhere else, because probably not all of you know the necessity of gender equality, and I took some time before coming here to research again the newest numbers, and first of all, we all know 50% of the population is female. So women represent half of the total employment potential. Now, let's look at the McKinsey study, the Fortune 500 study, the EY study, the BCG study, and many more studies. What do they tell us? They tell us in a mixed team, we are going to be far more what I didn't want to say? Well, we're just going to do it better in mixed teams. This is what I wanted to say. So it's not only about women. I very much think we have to have 50% on stage. So Mark, if you want, you can come on stage as well and bring a colleague or another 2 colleagues. I really do think that's the only way we can change this. What it also means, if we have gender equality, so if you have the 50% female forces on stage, in our businesses, in the world, in politics, in culture, and so forth, what will it do to the world? It will give us economic growth, it will give us positive returns on investments in women, it will give us a higher tax base, and it will, of course, help us with the remedy of shortage in skilled labor. So because all this is the case, my foundation has, in 2012, focused on gender equality to help change this. We are involved in 30 projects along 6 different areas, so economy, and there we're looking at the private sector, politics, we're looking at equal voices in politics. Arts, we know that, for example, this year's exhibition, solo exhibition in Switzerland, 93% of the solo exhibitions in Switzerland were run by male artists. We're looking at another field in culture, which is music. So probably you know that about 80% of all classical music concerts are conducted by men. And these numbers go on and on and on. So we decided that we're looking at all these different 6 spaces, areas, with about 30 collaboration partners. And one of which collaboration partner sits here is Annabella with Equal Voice. And I'm very happy that you're doing that. So Equal Voice is an initiative also helped by the Müller-Möhl Foundation, where we are. I'm handing over.
So what is Equal Voice?
So what is Equal Voice about? We want to make women more visible in media. I don't know if you are aware that 82% of the media coverage is about men. So I'm a CFO, so I like to count, right? So 18% is left over for women. And in Switzerland, it's nearly the same. We have 75% coverage of men, so 25% left over for women. So we at Ringier, we discussed, do we want to continue to show this inequality? Because as Carolina was pointing out, reality would be 50-50, right? So what are we doing with this equal voice? We want to measure it because we believe whatever gets measured gets managed or it gets aware. So by measuring it, we have the equal voice factor, and this factor measures how often women or men are shown in our media. And we found out it's not only about counting, but as importantly, it's the equal voice frame. What is the equal voice frame about? It's about how do we frame a story? How are women presented in media? What pictures are chosen? How's the layout? How's the wording? Or what questions are addressed to women rather than to men? So only that you are aware about your unconscious bias. That's why the equal voice frame is as important as the factor.
And why is equal voice and gender equality so important? And do you already see some results?
Well, first of all, and that's why I'm so happy that Marco invited us to come over here, because when Marco and I discussed the topic of equal voice, we both had the conclusion that it's a leadership topic. That's why I'm really happy that we can talk to you here among leaders, that it's not something that you can delegate to HR, but you as the CEOs or as the investors have to take care of. So in regards to the equal voice factor at media, we do believe that role models should be shown in media. And why only show male role models? There are wonderful women around. And we should have an effort to show those female role models as well. Because we believe that role models can encourage young women, even older women, that, oh, if you want to, you can reach for the stars, but you have to try it. So that's why we do believe what you see you can be, what you don't see you can't be.
Yes.
May I add something? And actually, you are very successful in doing that. So your journalists, they have a lot of fun. Now they get measured, and they find these ladies. Guess what? You know, they find these stories about investors that are doing a good job, about women in banking on very high positions and so forth. So you are successful. It's not that you don't find these stories, right?
You're totally right. In the beginning, they would state that they could not find them, and that's why we created this wonderful female expert lists, because we believe that there are experts around the world, but we have to gather them, we have to have their details, and now the journalists can easily find them. And the results are really impressive. Handelszeitung, 2 years ago we started with Equal Voice. Handelszeitung was at 17%. So 70% of our media coverage was about women. Nowadays, it's 27%. So it's really interesting. At Blick, similar results. We started at 25, we are now 32%. And what's really interesting, the reach we have at Blick, we have 50% women and 50% male. So it's really interesting. Women like to read stories about women as well.
Wonderful. So what are the next steps and how do you plan to achieve them?
Well, we want to continue this measuring because we found it out that we suddenly can have a rather emotional discussion, can totally be rationalized. And this helps for change, right? So currently we are approaching different media companies if they don't want to jump in this equal voice idea that we could create together an international media standard. And Ringier is present in 19 countries. So Poland already started this year with the equal voice factor, and now the next Eastern European countries will follow. But it's important that we have to train the algorithm that is behind to count it. And we have to train the algorithm that can know if the first name is female or male.
So, and how can the audience engage with you and the equal voice factor? And
well, first of all, if any journalists are around, we are more than happy to include your media companies as well. And I think it's really important that you as leader be aware. Are you are you pushing your women? Are you trying to make your women more visible? There are talents around your companies, I bet. And do you encourage them to talk to media? Do you encourage them to talk internally and externally? And I think this is something really important. And in the beginning, there might be some women that don't want to talk to media. And please don't give up. Continue talking to them. Encourage them to go to workshops, to learn, to be trained how to handle media. And yeah, they just can come to us, and we will put them on the expert list.
And when we met yesterday, you also told me about the corporates. You started an initiative where a lot of corporates in Switzerland joined. I think this is also one of the next expansion steps, how not only media company can integrate the equal voice factor, I think.
Totally. We will launch this initiative in January, and it's about, I explained it before, we want to make women as role model more visible, right? And we want to do the same for companies. We want to make Swiss companies visible, that they are role models as well for diversity. Because as I was stating before, it's a leadership topic. So we are currently looking for companies that want to make a difference in this topic of diversity and inclusion. Because it's not so complicated. You just need to get started. So yeah, this will take place in January.
And I think Switzerland is a wonderful use case for this, and I hope you will expand very soon to other, maybe first German-speaking countries.
Yeah.
And I learned that there are the first steps in plan, and I think it's also fantastic because you have this audience here. These are the next leading companies in tech in the world, and to really start already now to speak with you.
Definitely. And we offer this equal voice solutions or as a service for all the different companies. Yeah, we started now with media companies, but we have currently a pilot with, I don't want to call the name, but with one Swiss company. They are currently discussing, reviewing their media internally. So are they as diverse represented in media as they think that they are? And it's so interesting. When you measure it, you have a different ground for the discussion.
The problem is when you measure it, you get to the World Economic Forum Gender Gap Report, which tells us that it takes us another 135 years till women are equal. So I think it's good what you're doing with Equal Voice, and I'm supporting it. I think it's an amazing tool. It's one of the tools, but it's probably not the only tool. We also have to really make sure that we knock down the structural barriers of why women are not doing or not really following their careers. We know, for example, you're talking about Switzerland. Switzerland is actually a very nasty environment for female careers. Our childcare institutions are far too expensive. We don't have daytime schools all over Switzerland, and we are setting negative working incentives for women to work with our tax law. So we as a foundation are also trying to break down these structural barriers for female careers. And then of course, you know, within companies we have the sticky floors and the glass ceilings which sort of keep women from moving onwards. I would say it all starts with the woman being very resilient, right? I mean, you have to really want to do this career, and if you want to have a family on top, you have to want to juggle all these things in the air. That's the first thing. But then, you know, we do face these structural barriers that we have to definitely knock down, or at least find ways. And I think Switzerland is a well enough and rich country, so we would have the money. I'm always saying, you know, we're investing more money in the one cow than in the one child. So I think we should definitely come to a conclusion where we think, I have nothing against cows, besides that they add CO2, but you know, that's another question for another sustainability panel. But definitely I think we have to tackle this problem of why are women not moving onwards, why why is that? Why are all the numbers showing that they're not there? It's not only because they don't want or they couldn't, so it's not about talents. You know, if you look at music, for example, it really is the structural barriers, it's the personal upbringing of a woman. We were saying the socialization process of each woman. Did your mother work? What was the relationship between your parents? Is like my mother always worked, they had an eye-level conversation, so I never really thought there is something I couldn't do because I would, because I'm a woman, if we're not talking about sports, of course. But everything in an intellectual space, I think I wouldn't ever ask myself. And then if you read Yuval Harari's book *Sapiens*, he gives 4 pages to the factor of women, and he tells us, well, it's clear, you know, we have been living hundreds of years in a patriarchal system. And that's not something we can change, but what we can change is the design, and this is exactly what you're doing with Equal Voice. You are changing the design of the process. And this has to happen within companies, this has to happen in politics. We have to set internal rules, internal quotas, interne Zielvorgaben, where we aim to change this world to a better, and in my world, the best world would be a 50% world where we have 50% women and 50% men. And I want to promote quickly a book. I didn't write it, and I'm not earning anything by promoting it. I'm just telling you, this is an incredible book. It's written by Iris Bonet, Professor Iris Bonet. She is the dean of the Harvard Kennedy School and sits on the board of Credit Suisse, maybe not a claim to fame, but and she wrote an incredible book about what works, where she puts out the couple of things that you need to do in your companies, in your environment, how you can change the design so there will be more women moving on the ladder and being there and trying to change the world. Besides that, it's a business case, what I said before, and the business case is mixed teams are just being more successful.
So thank you very much. I think Equal Voice is a wonderful tool of how to execute one how-to. So thank you so much, and yeah, thank you, Marco, for inviting us.
Perfect. Thank you.